Hi everyone and welcome to my review of Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon in 1975. So yes, here we are with a very special review today, and yes, once again diving back into this set, the Kubrick set here, and yes, with a film that is a one that I've been building up for some time. Let's say definitely a year, and I've kind of revealed my thoughts to some people on the channel about the film and my specific thoughts, but I've tried to be kind of keep it this secret kind of thing, and build it up kind of thing. And of course it's a very you know divisive film, very interesting film, of course. Divisive, of course. It's very when it came out, of course, it did not get much attention, and it did get 4 Oscars, but the kind of Oscars that it got were definitely ones that kind of you associate with films that sometimes are not really actually watched by many, and they're just kind of respected. Yes, and it's been called a coffee table film, and all these kind of things. And we'll get this kind of talk out of the way first, so I can actually say my personal thoughts. But of course, it does tie into it because I first watched this in 2014, and it was this set that I started with, of course, for my real exploration of Kubrick. My favourite director of all time now, and for me the greatest, even better than Spielberg, I have to say. And yes, of course I'd seen, I've said before, I'd seen Full Metal Jacket, Spartacus, and The Shining. The Shining being the first one that I saw, very young age. Literally one of the first horror films I've ever seen. And of course I love that film to bits. And Full Metal Jacket, quite a controversial one. We'll get to that, and I love it. And yes, Spartacus, I've already reviewed this, and this was it was 2014, and of course I watched A Clockwork Orange, and as we know from my review, one of my 5 favourite films. Wow, that completely changed my life and my view on cinema, and just it done something truly deeply, made me truly to the next level, a level that never really before that I had reached. But I was so obsessed and passionate about cinema all my life. But Clockwork Orange was the film that really took it to a level that was even higher. And then Barry Lyndon was the first one actually that I watched from this set, because I thought I have to buy this guy's work. Clockwork Orange just blew me away, and I didn't think it would be that good, kind of thing, surpass all his works. And Barry Lyndon was the one that I was actually more interested in, than 2001. Actually, I have to admit, also on this set, and Eyes Wide Shut as well. So interesting. But Barry Lyndon, because I love epic films, period pieces, and this is the one that you cannot really call, a film in many other ways to normal films. Certainly within Kubrick's work, because it's not, it's never talked about in pop culture. In terms of people quote different characters and stuff, really, on shows or whatever. This one is so contained, and it's very kind of under the radar, and actually when I got this set, weirdly, since then, 5 years after, it has actually grown even more in stature. It started to grow, in the 2000s, really. It seems, online from what I gather, more and more people seeing this film, and I guess with the Blu-ray releases, Criterion now as well, it has actually grown more and more in stature. Actually, it's by some people regarded as the finest, Kubrick work. Although it's never going to be, kind of the consensus that it's one of his very best, really, by everyone, because it is divisive. Some people do not connect with the film, but yes, I watched this film, and I got this through in the post. As I say, shortly after I watched A Clockwork Orange, I thought I had to buy it. It's pretty cheap, and I got this, and I opened it. I was so excited. I looked at images of Barry Lyndon. I thought, this is right. This is really for me. This film. It seems. We'll see what it's actually like. I've not really heard anything specifically about the film other than the technicals, as it is really still a lot of the time. But yes, I opened it up. I was so excited, and it was smashed. Because sometimes box sets like this, people do not treat them well, and they come broken. And it was broken. I sent it back, and I asked for a replacement. And yes, very shortly after, on the same week, I got one. Even before they'd received it, I got another one. I opened it up, and I watched Barry Lyndon. And it was an all-day event, really. Afternoon. No one in the house. I'd actually, it's interesting. I just finished my A levels, and yes, I was really just looking forward to it before I moved house and stuff. Before I kind of done that, and looking forward to a few months to kind of just immerse myself, in different things and have a break. And this is a film that I put in, and I just thought, okay, right, the opening scene. There's something truly special about this film from the opening scene, and straight away, just so invested, and wow, just the opening scene to this film, of course, is just one of the most seductive and kind of entrancing scenes ever, and it's a very, very. This film is a satire, but it's kind of a fantasy film as well, fantastical, and just the way that I'm invested in this film, and we'll just quickly sum this up. My initial reaction, that by 57 minutes it was, I remember very vividly, and this will be a long review, a spoilers review as well. Very, very vividly here, just 57 minutes that I paused this at, just to actually replenish my cup of green tea. It was weirdly, and yes, I was just thinking when I was making my cup of tea, is this has this actually surpassed what had already just blown my mind literally within a week of seeing Barry Lyndon, Clockwork Orange, and really for me, A Clockwork Orange, when I saw that, I just thought, is this the greatest film ever made? Really, certainly standalone. And I thought, has this film done something where it surpassed A Clockwork Orange already within the first hour of the film? And this is some film. It's an experience like no other. And certainly by the end of the film, and a day after, kind of just being in a state of seeing this film, I said to myself, perhaps this is the greatest standalone film in the history of cinema. And everyone watching, yes, only took a rewatch of this to confirm what I already thought. And then of course, it's my fifth viewing now of this truly magical, fantastical tragedy that is just the greatest work, single greatest work, of a single film by any director, standalone in the history of cinema, the greatest of the 20th century, and my favourite Kubrick film. Yes, hands down. This is cinematic perfection in my personal opinion. Wow, this film is just an experience like no other, and little did I know, that this would become, this title, of the greatest Kubrick film for me, the greatest film of the 70s, and by far the greatest Kubrick for me. A big cut overall as a complete work, above A Clockwork Orange in 2001, and some of his other works, of course, so many masterpieces. But this is really the film. If ever I was, and I don't do this all the time because it's kind of unfair, but to judge a film when I see a film against another film where it's kind of hard, impossible to top and to kind of measure it, it's the Barry Lyndon factor that it has to be compared to, not the Kubrick factor or the Clockwork Orange, but Barry Lyndon, because I really regard this higher than pretty much any film ever made, and it's a cut above so many titles: The Godfather Part 2, City Lights, E.T., Lawrence of Arabia, 2001, of course, A Clockwork Orange, Gone with the Wind. Just all these films for me that I am obsessed with and stuff, but this one is far higher for me personally, and of course not everyone will connect to it, but personally for me, it is the most tragic film ever made, and I rarely am moved with a film in this particular way as much as this, and it's a film very kind of such an interesting plot, but yes, you've got the narration, which is definitely satirical, but again, it does it immerses me so much. People, of course, call this film very funny. It's a satire, of course. Definitely a very humorous film at times, particularly the first kind of 45 minutes, and then some of the last act of the film with the family, of course. And yes, it begins with this Irish rogue, Redmond Barry, and yes, he's in love with his cousin Nora, played wonderfully by Gay Hamilton. She is great in this film, wonderful, and you have this entrancing, dreamlike opening scene, and let me tell you, the rest of this film, the heavens open, it seems, because this is the greatest cinematography I've ever witnessed, hands down. This is just the most beautiful, film in this regard ever put to film, and surpassing, by miles, Days of Heaven, which is just one of the most wonderful, beautiful films ever made. It surpasses The Godfather Part 2, Lawrence of Arabia, all these films for this cinematography. 2001, The Clockwork Orange, just to create just a, some people say it's like a painting or a moving painting, but it's literally like I've stepped into a painting and I'm now living in this world, and it's just something that every single frame I want to look at forever and want to be in, because this film, from start to finish, it just has the greatest cinematography of all time. Of course, once again, working with John Alcott, got the Oscar as well. But this film really is the most beautiful for me. I cannot believe how wonderful this film looks. There's something about this that is just so dreamlike, but so real. It's this combination of reality, fantasy feel that this film has. The opening scene as well, elongating the dialogue, particularly here with Kubrick. He does this in Eyes Wide Shut as well. That's the closest you get to this type of dialogue a lot of the time. Just reeling you in. You're kind of there's a tension within the dialogue that is just making me, wanting to hear the next line and being so immersed and lost. That's the key thing here. In this world and in this dialogue, many times in the film, you've got the narration, of course, and it never undermines the film. This narration is explaining at times what is about to happen. Even, of course, as we know, spoilers review again, the death of Brian, literally saying before it happens, that he's gonna be, childless, Barry, and it's something that never stops the emotions from being felt at all, and this is something really rare. It's something that, it's a parody in many ways. It's a satire. It's very funny at times, and even the narration, of course. But it's something that it's more powerful than literally nearly any film I've ever seen in such particular ways. This film brings me to tears on many occasions, and just the death of Brian is maybe the most tragic, one of the most tragic for sure, 5 moments in cinema. There is very little times where I've been as moved as this. It's something that I did not expect. Going into this, it starts off with such a kind of in such a way where I'm so invested in this kind of you could say small scale going ons. The kind of the family shenanigans. The conflict here is so masterfully set up between Barry and many of the other characters. You've got power struggles here. You've got motives coming through, jealousy. All these things that I would think this film would be more famous and well known, like something like Gone with the Wind, for all these kind of this drama, this romance. Watching this, you would think at times that this is known as one of the most loved epics. It's just a surprise for me that it's not, because it has all the elements, and it's very different in its approach and tone, of course. And Kubrick is different to any other director, but yes, it has all these things here. It has this straight away, this narrative. But certainly another accolade here that I can say, once the film ends, I have witnessed the greatest character arc of all time from a single film. This is stunning. Ryan O'Neal as well has been criticised, and once again, everyone has their own opinions. But wow, one of the 10 greatest performances, in the history of cinema. For me, when he breaks down, in that moment, of course, when he's, links back, of course, to an earlier part of the film where he's telling the story to his son, his, wonderful son, and it is such a sad scene. The acting there, as well by Marisa Berenson, who is wonderful in the film. Another person who's criticised. When that moment happens, I'm witnessing one of the very finest, maybe even top 5, acted scenes in cinema. This is truly stunning. A moving performance, no doubt. Just wow, I couldn't believe it. I was expecting, someone who, I probably find some issues with the performance, here, the way people talk about this film, and certainly, when it was released and stuff, it got quite a lukewarm reception from some critics, calling it a cold film. We'll get to that. We'll get to the cold aspect of the film. But the performances, of course, were criticised and still are in many regards. But I was shocked at just how how wonderful Ryan O'Neal is in this film. And he's great in other films, again, like Love Story, another criticised film. But this is his finest performance for me, and yes, my personal opinion is that it's one of the very, very best, the 10 greatest performances, and for me, many cite The Godfather, Michael Corleone, Al Pacino, as the greatest character arc in a single film. For me, it's Barry Lyndon, no doubt, hands down, even surpassing A Clockwork Orange with Alex DeLarge, Malcolm McDowell. This is something that I am so enthralled in, the character arc. The rise and fall, never has this been bettered than in Barry Lyndon for me. This is something truly special, and I've never been as invested in a character, as kind of entranced by a character's kind of transformation over the film, the way he becomes so at times a character who I actually go against. Wow, it's always a shocker, when I'm so kind of feeling sorry for this character. All these things, of course, it depicts the kind of how he is so unlucky, and things happen to him tragic, in the first sort of hour or so. He keeps getting into trouble, kind of thing, without really, doing anything too bad. And, it's just a matter of luck at the end of the day. And you've got of course, the death of one of the captains there, Godfrey Quigley, playing the captain there, who is one of the greatest characters in a Kubrick film. He was also, played a character in A Clockwork Orange, and yes, just Captain Grogan. He plays one of the, this character is one of the best in a Kubrick film, and wow, the death of that character. This is stuff of legends. It's so emotional and heartfelt, so human, this film, and yes, I just could not believe this what is happening to this character. I've never been as invested in a single film, for a character just over a single film as much as this, and it's so mind blowing. And then, of course, as I say, it kind of really changes. I'm now, after 10 minutes or so of our character over there, eventually Barry Lyndon, of course, becoming as has a family. He attains a title, status, and he begins an actual family here. I'm actually now siding with this family and some other characters here. Within this this family here. Of course, Runt, Reverend Runt. He's a character who, straight away, I'm seeing his point of view, and this is something very, very rare for me to be, feeling so much complex emotions, because I'm actually kind of I'm against, our main protagonist, who is just so likable for me. I really I loved this character. I really grew an affection for the character of, Barry, and Ryan O'Neal was just so good in this film, and then he becomes a character who is someone that in some ways is kind of treated as a villain at times. The way he comes in and disturbs this family, and the tragedy that befalls the whole family in the second half of the film is something unmatched in cinema. And of course, yes, the way that I'm involved in the family drama, in this second half, I think I'd have to say this is the most invested I've been in just a single family in a single film ever. I must say the drama of it, the conflict within the family, is so perfectly, wonderfully set up, and the dynamics, of course, the script, the way they are portrayed with such humanity, and just the internal conflict within Barry and Lord Bullingdon, one of the great characters, of course, played by Leon Vitali, wonderfully. This is a great performance. He, of course, became Kubrick's personal assistant, which is really, really nice to know. He saw something in this guy, and they worked together, of course, till his death, Kubrick's death, and he, of course, I've seen, he seems like a really great guy. I've seen him in interviews, and it's really wonderful to know this, because he gives a standout performance, and this character of Lord Bullingdon, you see his transformation, when he's a small child, and the way Barry, of course, comes into, interrupts this family, and causes so many problems. You see the conflict rise as he rises as he grows, older, of course. And this character of Lord Bullingdon is one of the greatest characters in a film for me. Just the way that I get so invested in him, and it's just I feel different things for both sides. But the way I'm actually taking sides is really just something that I didn't think I would be. I was because of course, when we see Barry get his money taken, his horse, these moments, for example, early on, where I'm just so behind this character, so feeling sorry for him, and just it's Barry. If anyone does anything to him, I'm against these characters. But wow, the way I was able to flip, it was able to flip in that second half, and for me to actually grow, to kind of see all the different sides in this film, within these characters, within the family, is something truly, truly mind-blowing. It's genius. This film, to call it genius, is a true understatement, and it's just, wow, as I say, my initial reaction was just, I couldn't believe it. This is just something that completely floored me. I couldn't believe it. I thought, is this the film that is the one, of the greatest of the century? And by no hesitation, I do say this now. Yes, it is for me the finest work. Not only of Kubrick's filmography, which is just you actually think, the more and more you think, how did he make so many films of this quality and emotion? And 2001 even, which I don't think is even the one just below this. I think The Clockwork Orange is. But then you've got a film here that tops it. It tops all of his films for me by a lot, in combination of the elements. While A Clockwork Orange probably has, maybe still say that it has the more wowing editing, and maybe use of music. Although rewatching this, it is very, very very similar, of course, in the quality of the use of music. Leonard, Rossiter, and the integration of classical music here is something that Kubrick he knew how to do better than anyone, is to integrate existing music into his films and use it to tell a story as well as what's going on elsewhere. The use of music in this film is only really for me kind of next to A Clockwork Orange. Nothing else comes close for me personally, and I am just in awe of this every single element of this film, and just I was initially just floored, as I say, and this every time since has just grown on me and grown on me even more. And it's not a film that, as I say, is really known in culture at all too much, unless you're a cinephile and you've actually maybe you've explored Kubrick's work. There are some, as I say, that do say this is maybe his best, and for me it's hands down his best. And actually, I'm glad that I didn't know too much about this when going into it, because it's kind of like this step into the unknown, as I say, this wonderful hidden world. It's a really, really unique thing, and I'm actually grateful that it's not, it wasn't, at least then, quite as as well known or regarded, and it still really isn't too much. And I was just so glad actually that I did watch it in that state where I didn't really know, well, I certainly didn't know anything about the characters. That's the thing. No one mentions the characters too much. Some people do, but even your lists and everything, they would focus on the cinematography, which is the best for me. They would focus on the use of music, pretty much the best for me as well. All these things, the production, which is just genius, a wonderful creation here, a recreation of the time, of course, but no one really properly talks about these characters, the humanity to these characters, the way the immersion of the world, the narrative, the character arc, and just the level of emotion. It's truly something else. The family life, and the way this is for me the purest representation of a rise and fall in cinema. This is truly something that outshines anything for me, and it's a fantasy. I see this as a fantasy work, a world that I can step into and literally dream when I'm watching this. This is just literally a dream film for me, and it's one that I wouldn't even call it moving painting. I would call it just a painting that I'm in a world that just literally transports me from the opening scene, what many would consider kind of a low-key scene, but it's one of the greatest opening scenes of all time for me, and it's literally someone them involved in discussion about a ribbon, but it's so much more. The subtext here is truly something else. The level of tension, as I say, within the dialogue, and from then on it's an adventure film, a great in many ways a war film. Barry, of course, he tries to escape the law. He gets, as I say, robbed by criminals. He has to flee, from this duel, of course, which is just one of the most epic moments in cinema. That first duel with Leonard. Rossiter, who is such a great actor, also in 2001, and actually, Pink Panther Strikes Again. He's a great actor, of course he was. And yes, this is his finest role for me, and plays Captain Quinn, and just the way that duel plays out, and Barry's on the run. This is an adventure film that I could not believe how it was unfolding, how this narrative was unfolding. Of course, one of the most beautiful moments I've ever seen, comparable to many Chaplin moments. When he meets that woman, he goes into her house. I don't think you know the name of the woman actually in that scene. Around about the 50-minute mark, and she's got a kid. Her husband's off in the war, and of course he comes in, to get some food and stuff, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. The use of music is just truly spiritual, and from then on, it's an adventure film, and then it goes into this kind of espionage, kind of political, it's thriller, and then of course, eventually, for me, the finest, the kind of family, drama, and just ending in one of the most tragic ways I've ever seen. As for me, as I've said, the greatest tragedy in the history of cinema. And just technically, this film, the way this is shot, many have cited this as just a wonderful piece of cinematography, of course, and yes, this is something that I'm not going to ignore. As I've said, it's the greatest to me, and the way that Kubrick basically modified the cameras. Of course, they needed to shoot in such low light, developing these ultra fast lenses to capture this in many particular ways that would be, achievable, and just imagine as well the way they had to, of course, I guess, especially with the amount of takes involved, with Kubrick films, the lighting of the candles, basically, because of course a lot of the scenes, natural light, in particular ways, and candlelit scenes. The genius that went into this, is something else, and it adds so much to the film. This is the film, it's a natural, realistic, fantastical as well, and dreamlike, but a realistic kind of transportation, transfiction of this time period, and of course the way that Kubrick used natural light throughout so much of the film is something that is truly wonderful. The way that he done this is something that I'm just in awe of, truly am, and it adds so much. Yes, the natural sort of ways that he does this adds so much to my investment in the picture, in the world. The way I'm transported is partly because, of course, this is such a realistic, in many ways. It's literally like you're looking at real life stuff, even though it has got, of course, a kind of a dreamlike effect to much of the cinematography, the focus, the use of focus in the film, and the zooms as well. So much masterful, genius cinematography in this film. But the way, cinematography would not be some of the best for me unless we have this, in relation to the characters, what it says about the characters, the relationships, the connection, of course, that Kubrick is making between our characters and the environment, perhaps kind of. This is why, of course, it is compared to paintings, but this is something else. This is something where the use, the two shots, of course, just literally the best I've ever seen. This is something that really, if you are studying things, you really will pick up on this. This is something that is a cut above other films, and the way he uses not the zooms, the zoom ins too much, but more importantly in this film is the zoom outs, and it truly is genius, and it is saying something about these characters at points. For example, when Barry is, becoming more and more isolated and distanced from his family and from his friends, of course, and acquaintances. When, of course, everyone kind of, abandons him towards the end of the film, for example, and the camera slowly zooms out on many occasions. This is just truly wonderful, and it's not just, to show great cinematography. It's to tell, a story visually, and this is something that for me throughout the film. The combination, for example, of the handheld shots and these wonderful static shots, the wides, the two shots, all of these techniques, of course, that can be simply done, but harder to master. Kubrick is, for me, a cut above everyone. Within the way he tells the story in this film. I am in awe of this more than 2001 or A Clockwork Orange. In the way that he tells the story visually. It's something that I've never seen. This is the heights of cinema for me visually, and I cannot believe how wonderfully he tells the story. Just a beautiful film, but one that he's in full control of course, and it has been called a kind of a cold film, a detached film, and I can see what some people mean at times, but I think actually the key here is, it's more. Yes, it kind of depicts a harsh world at times. For example, the scenes where he is robbed and things happen to him. The ending, has there been a more daring ending in terms of just our main character, our protagonist, literally very, very weak ending for him in terms of how it how things turn out for him. It's not a film that ends triumphantly for our main character, although I feel so much kind of joy for the family as well at the same time. Bittersweet, of course, but yes, it's a film that is so, it ends so kind of tragically for Barry. It depicts the coldness of many people, and the environments and stuff, but actually, it's also at the same time, it's not a cold film in its core, because it does have the biggest heart for me of a Kubrick picture. This is the film for me where he fully put in his soul into this film, actually, I think, and the beauty of the family scenes. But just throughout so many moments in the film, the encounter, of course, with the Chevalier de Bally Barry, played wonderfully by Patrick Magee. Once again, a very different performance from A Clockwork Orange. And just I cannot believe how good he is in this film. The level of emotion and the heart, the humanity that comes through in that scene when he breaks down Barry, and you see the humanity in the Chevalier. His face. It's just something else. It really is. And just the scenes I've mentioned. Barry encounters the woman around the 50-minute mark, and you've got that beautiful kind of love, kind of romantic stuff there. And of course, we are not forgetting the first scene, of course, where Barry and Lady Lyndon meet. This is one of the most romantic scenes in cinema, and I've mentioned this film in regards to how it's kind of a silent film at times. Kubrick taking elements from silent cinema and just mastering them within a film that is not, kind of a silent film, of course, but it is in many, many ways. And the scene when they first meet, there's no dialogue really between them. It's all through the eye contact, the way he places the camera, the two shots, of course, the reactions here, just the way when the characters are looking up with their eyes. That's when you're kind of, Kubrick is wanting you to kind of pay attention, maybe more so on this particular character, and it's something where it's actually a seduction scene in many, many ways through glances, and this is one of the most genius and wonderful, uplifting moments in cinema. Despite the fact the romance, of course, eventually turns very, very toxic, the relationship, and Kubrick, believe it or not, here this is a film that actually explores how men can treat women, and the tragedy of that, and the way he does not treat Lady Lyndon well at all. He cheats on her. He treats her like an object, of course, and this explores as well. It's a genius thing. Kubrick actually, in many ways, and I don't think this is just a painting. I know many people say that, but it's similar to that in the way that the characters at times are treated. Lady Lyndon is literally, as we hear through the narration as well, and we see through Barry's actions and his thoughts, she's treated like an object, like one of his possessions, and that is just it's evident as well within the scene in the carriage, when of course he blows smoke in her face, and he does not treat her with too much kindness at times. And the rest of the film, she has very, very little dialogue. Marisa Berenson, she is so great in this film. She really doesn't need dialogue, but the moments, of course, which she does speak. She does speak in the film, and she's wonderful. But she's given very little dialogue, but portrays everything so wonderfully, perfectly. And this is a thing. She is not heard throughout the film. It seems from by Barry, and it's the thing. It really explores this level. It's a way that Kubrick, is so daring to kind of and honest, just in the way that maybe Scorsese was, and De Niro with Raging Bull, to give us a protagonist where we see so many dark sides to him, and but he just shows it in honest ways, and lets us just absorb this character for the good and the bad of him, all the flaws, and just making for an honest and compelling experience here. And the way, of course, that he treats his family, particularly Lady Lyndon, is so powerful, so tragic, and so compelling. I've rarely been as shocked as I say at how this turns out. In the final act, in particular, how invested I was in this family drama. It's such a unique film, and in the way that it escalates. Once again, the cinematography, the editing, the direction is absolutely mind-blowing throughout, and I've rarely seen a film where the use of music is to this level. As I say, this could be the best, along with Clockwork Orange. It's just, the march music, of course, when Barry is, very quite early on when he's in, escaping, his outfit, and he of course he tries to escape the war, the army, and you hear that march music. Of course, he's on the horse. When that moment came on for the first time that I saw this film, I was just in awe, and it just gave me shivers. The way this music is used, epic. This is an epic film with a truly epic, but intimate and personal, and really so spiritual in its soundtrack. Just it brings me to tears. The beauty of this music. How are we able to create music this wonderful, and the way Kubrick uses it, throughout the film, just shall I bow for this man? This is something else, and I cannot believe how mind blowing this film is. The use of music, as I say, is just stunning, and yes, just once again, just to say that this film, the way I am invested in these characters, the way, of course, you see the mother returning, Barry's mother, in the second half of the film, and it's just moments like this where you look back to the beginnings of the film, and it's hard to believe sometimes. I always it stops me in my tracks. Moments in the second half when you contemplate how far we've come, and the many years that have passed within the film, and this is how genius this film is as an epic. The scope of this is unmatched in cinema for a single film to do this. It's just wow. The journey, that's what it is. The journey. Not just geographically we've come so far, obviously, and many years in the film, and but just emotionally, and for the character of Barry, his development across the film, and the narrative, just the whole narrative in a nutshell, just the way we've come so far, and it's just an experience like no other. The way I look back to the earlier moments of the film, more quieter maybe, more innocent moments. This is the thing. It's the most tragic film maybe that I love, but it's one that is so uplifting in many moments. So many moments. It has also as well, like The Godfather for me, or Godfather Part 2, whatever you want to say there. Just films like this where they have literally everything in life in one film, kind of thing. Everything you need from a film is there. Everything that represents life. This film does that too, and literally more so than any other film that is just a single film, that is not part of a franchise or anything. This is something to behold, and it really is. It's got everything as well in terms of genre, really, that I love so much. A period piece, it's a comedy, a satire at times. It's it's got action scenes, big action scenes that are so masterfully shot, and many would. I can see how many would not say that this is as investing in some of its action scenes than what they could be, but I just think it's some of the most genius battle scenes, for example, ever, and it's something else, and it's got adventure to the film, it's got romance, it's got the darker side of love, it's got so many things, drama of course, more than anything in the end, and just the Stanley Kubrick factor to bring it above every other film really, and it's something else, at this point I would have dreamed, of course, before this film was made. Would Kubrick make a period film? Would he make his kind of, I know Spartacus is in many ways, but in this sense, a costume kind of film like this, and he did it. Ironically, the one that is not really talked about as much as a lot of the others, but for me, just the one that is definitely the purest in its heart, the spiritual levels that this film reaches, in its depiction of humanity, what this says about humanity, the way it's a tragedy, it's a uplifting, joyous film, the way, the uplifting moments, especially when you see Barry with his son. This is something that really, really speaks to me. Wow. Yeah, it could be some of the most moving stuff I've ever seen. As I say, just the way that we see his son, as of course Brian, grow up, and you see so many aspects of life rolled into this. Like an Ozu film, for example, a slice of life. And this film has it all. Barry Lyndon. The way that it just explores childhood a little bit there, specifically as well. The way it kind of shows specifically family life, the banter and the kind of the arguments, of course, between Lord Bullingdon and Brian, young Brian, and that scene is one of my favourites in cinema when, of course, they're quarrelling. Brian's getting on his nerves with the kind of the homework they're doing, the studying, and it's such a true scene, an honest scene, a depiction of childhood and family life, and the kind of what you see as annoyances and stuff. And it's just moments like this, the way it's done, the way it's captured. For all these people who consider Kubrick a cold director, for all these critics that he had throughout his career until unfortunately his death, for those who really were against him, for calling him a cold director, this is the film more than anything that represents his heart, and it's just how human this guy was. Actually, he infuses this into the work, and you can't look at a film like this or a film like City Lights for Chaplin and call these people cold, truly in their heart, because it shows through in their work. Great filmmakers do infuse part of themselves and humanity in their films. And yes, as I've said, these scenes, although maybe quite fleeting in the grand scheme of this big epic, and for example, the first hour and a half doesn't really show these characters. But when it does, and for the very, very small moments, these scenes sometimes play out, it's just, there's something to cherish for me, and the way I connect to this, the way it speaks to me on every level, in terms of just family, the way it shows family life, I was not expecting this. And every watch, actually, it's grown on me even more and more, and it may be something that will just keep growing and growing as I grow older. Really, really appreciate this in the film, something that's truly, truly human and warm and humorous. I love how it's, humor in the film. It's just so honest and really elevates this experience. Yes, the satire elements, but actually just the moments of comedy within, just these young characters. Of course, it's so charming and innocent. It portrays innocence while it is a very, very harsh tragedy as well. And it's a combination of fantasy and reality, of course, that makes the greatest films, in cinema, but this one really has something special in it, and as specifically, within the family scenes, it's just something that I've never seen in a film, and I just cherish when I watch this again and again, and yes, just Lord Bullingdon, and Brian, and all these Lady Lyndon, and just the relationship, the father-son relationship, the mother-son relationship, and the whole experience and the way it shows family life is truly stunning. And of course, you've got the conflict within the family, and it's very, very dark at times and sad, so sad, but so uplifting actually, and so pure and joyous. When you see the joy that Barry has, when he's with Brian, of course, as we know from the narration, of course, the bit where the narration says, you could say many things, of course. But about Barry, but not he was a bad father, of course. And it's just a moment where it just really brings a smile to the face, and it really lifts the spirits there. The way that is explored, the father-son relationship, and then just like that, it's over. With that horse accident, and then we have Brian dying, of course, and I really broke down in that moment, just as our main character, finally loses it. His mask, what he's trying to maintain throughout the film. What he believes is really really important here. His status, his title, his what people think about him. Of course, his social status. It all breaks down here in this wonderful and truly moving scene where he loses his son and cuts to the funeral with the music, of course, the epic and truly some powerful music, of course, the main theme. And yes, just completely shattering this film. Really, really is. It's the Kubrick film that moves me way beyond his other films, and that's saying a lot because Clockwork Orange, it's it's an all that kind of kind of a very very brutal film. Our main protagonist is someone a criminal, very very brutal person. But I'm truly moved by that film. Eyes Wide Shut in many other ways. 2001 for its spiritualness and its awe, and everything. And so many of the films, Full Metal Jacket, in many moments. But this film just moves me way beyond the rest, and it's the best crafted for me. It's the most poetic, tragic film in his filmography, and just in cinema. When someone says, what makes for great cinema, is all these aspects Shakespearean. Everyone says, of course, and that's why they say something like The Godfather, and I agree. It's one of the best, and many people say that's the ultimate kind of representation of all these themes and family, loyalty, betrayal, and tragedy and everything. As I say. But Barry Lyndon has all of this and more, and I think it does it in a purer way than anything I've seen from a standalone film. And yes, we'll wrap up fairly soon, but just wow, this film is an experience like no other. It's a film that moves me in a way that no other film does in a particular way. I'm not saying that it moves me, makes me cry more than every single film, but almost, but in a different way more than anything. There's something else. The way this film starts out, of course, very very low key, you could say. It just reels me in such a into a trance through the dialogue, through the visuals, the framing. I cannot believe how Kubrick frames everything in the film, and you've got this wonderful, such relatable character with his mother as well early on. And his family and the way it's such an investing kind of just this type of film involving romance and kind of just kind of ongoings with different characters, conflict, of course, war. It's one of these classic films, what you would say has all the elements, but ironically, as I say, it's not a film that is known in big in pop culture like Gone with the Wind or something like this. And it's really strange for me, but yes, it just has all these elements, as I say, and it's the best for me in this vein. It's the best Kubrick film, and certainly my personal pick for the greatest standalone film in cinema. What this film means to me is even massively above Clockwork Orange, and I did say that's the best film I'd reviewed, before. And I said Dances with Wolves was my favourite, just above A Clockwork Orange probably. But yes, this film surpasses both of them, in my personal connection to the film, and personally for me in the quality. I think hands down this would be the pick for me if I was asked the greatest standalone film. As I say, this is it. All hail to this film. I think it's the greatest, the purest, the finest, whatever you want to say. Film, it's something to behold, and once again, just completely blown away. What cinema can do here, and as I say, it's an unknown door that we step into here. For me, at least, when I first saw it, and because it's just it's never specifically really too much anyway. I'm not going to say everyone, but talked about in the way of the characters, the story beats, which are just so memorable. An adventure film, done like this, where you remember vividly all these encounters. Throughout the film, when he gets his stuff stolen, of course, as I've said, the bit, of course, where characters return, they come in and out of the film, intertwined kind of thing. You see the breakdown with the Chevrolet, all these moments. Hardy Krüger as well is great in this film. Just a great character. The twists, the twists of a Hitchcock film. This has, it has the greater elegance than the Godfather films. More pure scenes than at times City Lights. This has everything. It literally trumps everything, really. And it just it's Barry Lyndon. It's an absolute magnum opus in my opinion. And yes, wow. If you've not seen this film, set aside some time. Don't maybe look into it too much if you've not heard about the film. But if you love epics, if you love period pieces, adventure films, romances, and if you've seen some Stanley Kubrick films, definitely if you've not seen this one, you have to set aside some time and just with no noise, hopefully, in the background and stuff, so you can fully immerse yourself in this frame, in this picture, get you immersed in the screen, in the film. Do this, please. I definitely implore you to do this because it's a life-changing film for me, and you don't need to respond to it. You don't need to think it's the best or one of the best or anything like this, but you just need to try and set aside the time to experience it and see what you think, because it's definitely like no other film for me. And just the key word for this whole experience, is comfort. I say that a lot about many films, but this one really is a real comfort watch. The way it does this through exploring family life, but just the use of classical music, which I've always loved as a young kid since that age. Just being entranced by classical music, even just unconsciously kind of thing, subconsciously just loving classical music, and the visuals, the locations, which does not make a film, but the way this is in combination, that's the thing, and just as I say, the music, the great, the characters, of course, the wonderful journeys they go through in the film, the exploration of childhood, as I say, and just family life, and just the early scenes as well. They have a real peaceful feel, and this film has got many peaceful moments where you contemplate what's happened so far, and you're so caught up in the narrative, but there is moments where it's really wonderful and just peaceful, and just kind of relaxed, you could say, and maybe early on more than the rest of the film, but yes, this is something that really truly comforts me, in every aspect, and just spiritually, it really it's something so much to me, and it's the one that I can just be assured that I am I'm in the hands of the director, and something where I can return to just feel these emotions, while very tragic. They are comforting to me, and just every aspect of the film, the visuals, the wonderful, as well, the production, the production to the film, the costumes, contender for the very best in cinema. Just the way it transports me to another time, a wonderful, the purity to the capturing of the time, and just as I say, the moments of humanity, the romance in the film. It has everything I love in cinema, and yes, just really captured in a way that is so comforting, puts me at ease wherever I am. If I'm in a bad place or something, I would watch Barry Lyndon and just be, in the film, and comforted so much, and just at one, spiritually, and just wow, this film really does something for me in every way, and it's truly just a wonderful experience. No doubt, of course, that I could go on and on about this film. Barry Lyndon, what a wonder, just something I'm always mesmerised by. It's a film, like as I've said before, Days of Heaven, in my review of that. It's a film where, even when I'm not watching it, what I'm doing every other day at least, it comes into my head. Just the experience I have with this is something that has really changed my life, and something that I'm constantly thinking about. Maybe at one time of the day, kind of thing. Like Days of Heaven, and the characters, the tragedy of it all, the dreamlike effect it has. That's the thing as well, and. Whenever I'm not watching this, I'm, at least at some point, as I say, within a week, thinking about it, and anticipating, and kind of bookmarking or whatever you want to say, my next watch of the film, which, has roughly been every year since I saw this kind of thing. Near enough every year. But yes, this is just truly a magnum opus of cinema, and it's some feat. It has the heart that is, for me, purer here than any other Kubrick film, and pretty much every other film in cinema. It's a film that, yes, it's a tragedy, and it ends in such a sad way. Although bittersweet ending, it's definitely got its satisfying moments within, for the family, even for Reverend Runt. Just a great character. This is the thing. It's characters like this, and who are all so important to the story, to the film, that are never really too much, I'm going to say, because of course there are people out there that really are invested in this film, but they don't, these characters don't get enough, I'm saying, attention, specifically, and how they're so memorable for me, and just they all play such vital roles to the film, and just the experience, truly something I'm satisfied at the end for them. But wow, deeply saddened by what happens, of course, to Barry and his mother as well. You really feel sorry for her. What a tragic film, but so daring and honest to end it in that way. And just, it wraps up perfectly. It's not a kind of explosive ending like 2001 or Clockwork Orange. It's more in the vein of something like The Shining. You could say, certainly, just a easing ending. Eases you out of the film. Certainly leaves you in effect. But one that is not explosive, or kind of like Doctor Strangelove maybe, or it's more like The Shining, Eyes Wide Shut kind of thing, and it's just a truly wonderful way to end the film. This narrative, this creation, of course, and it was, yes, just such an irony, of course, as I say, that it's not, certainly not when it came out, too talked about, although it's grown and grown more and more, and I'm glad, of course, but of course, I'm not going to be, stupid enough to think everyone will love any film, because no one does, and not everyone agrees in the world on any film, even the most renowned works. But it doesn't matter. This is my personal review of the film, and the reason I created the Tier S rating more than any film, was due to this. You could say, actually, and just the way it really just fueled even further my passion for cinema, my obsession with this craft. Just to be transported, of course, in this way to a world, and experience these emotions, and return into this film again and again and again and again, forever, to revisit this story, to keep going with these emotions, the cycle of this, what is the cycle of life, this film, and it has everything in this, the rise and fall, but again, so complex. Even, as I say, Reverend Runt is given so much, complexities, and I felt so much for the different sides of the characters across the film. I am shocked with this film. I'm literally once again blown away, and yes, as I say, 100% plus Tier S. I literally say that without any sort of feeling there, because this is the reason I've created this rating, really, more than anything, more than Clockwork Orange or The Godfather Part 2 or something like this. This is the film, the reason why I originally created these plus tiers, but because it originally did start with the Tier S, actually, maybe only 16 films, but stemmed from something like Barry Lyndon, really, and just, for me, the greatest Kubrick work, in my opinion. I'd love to see the rankings in the comments. It'd be great to have some Kubrick talks here. Of course, I will certainly be doing some videos on this again in the future. Just more excuses for me to talk about the film, and of course, explore different people's thoughts on the film. I'd really like to talk about these characters more with people, because, as I say, it's something that's not too big. As I say, in terms of just they're talked about as much in pop culture and stuff. It's not something I've heard too much people talk about, the actual specifics of the story, the characters, the arcs in the film, and just the moments of humour. As I say, to wrap up, this film has everything that I want. And never thought would be in any film, really, in this way. This is a dream come true on the screen, and a dream that I take part in every time I watch. I step in very slowly, take my time into this through the gradual opening scene, and then from then on, I'm in this experience, and just I'm in there. I'm experiencing this from start to finish, the ups and downs in terms of the emotions. The uplifting moments, the beauty, the way it really lifts the spirits, how human this film is, funny the film is, of course. Great, the satire ready to end anything, and the acting, of course, is just so authentic, so immersive. The way Kubrick frames the actors in relation to the surroundings to create just, I'd say, some sort of something beyond, just a simple. This is a painting or a moving painting. This film, it's more than that, and it's very undescribable. It literally is something completely beyond. This is something that literally achieves a step further to anything really that I've seen. And in terms of cinema, it's just the film that I'd really say is the greatest standalone film. And it's a fantastical film. It's so raw at times. The feelings that I get from this, I break down in tears. I'm uplifted. I'm moved. Of course, I'm enthralled by the action, the thrill of this, the plot twists and turns, where he's kind of in and out of the law, and of course the depictions of war in the film. Tragic stuff, of course. Godfrey Quigley playing Captain Grogan. Just his death, Brian's death, just the tragic aspects of this. But of course, that moment, especially when you see the captain die. I don't know. It's just one of the most beautiful moments. It really is. There's such a beauty to even the tragic moments in this, because it's just I cannot believe how this guy Stanley Kubrick has moved me with this film beyond even his other works, and it's really something to behold. And we'll wrap up, but yes, Barry Lyndon. I've been building it up, of course, for over a year, revealing it to a few devoted subscribers. Because I have had to actually reveal exactly what my favourites are at times. Actually, I couldn't resist. But yes, certainly in a video I have not ever said Barry Lyndon is the greatest standalone film to me, but now here it is in the review, in my longest review yet. Fittingly, Barry Lyndon is it. It's cinema, and not everyone will like the film, but I really just it does not bother me at all. It's really just an experience like no other for me personally. A journey that I take with this just unique, complex, the greatest character in terms of his arc in cinema, Barry Lyndon, just this Irish rogue who just goes across a journey that just goes to cinema and back again. The heights of this, and just I am so grateful for the film to be made, and for me to just be able to watch this whenever I want, to experience the joys of life, the beauty, the landscapes. I'm transported to this beautiful film shot in Ireland, England, Germany. Wonderfully shot. It really is a spiritual experience. The moments when you just see Barry going through on the horse, or going through the trees on ahead. It's a spiritual experience, an out-of-body experience I take, and it's just in terms of drama, conflict, everything you look for. Every critic, for example, would look for in theatre, or many things, and cinema. This is the film that just has everything, and I don't quite know personally how it's not at times got the attention that I think it really deserves. This at least deserves your time to give it a go, and personally for me, I absolutely. I'm truly grateful for the experience and obsessed with the film, of course. We're probably reaching an hour long in this review now, and we should wrap up. Of course, ending with, of course, a salute and a real applaud to Stanley Kubrick for making the film, and more than genius, he has moved me with this work, and it's not just about the craftsmanship, to this, and the overall, the technicals, it's how they are used to speak to me and to say something about humanity, and create a fantastical, just an experience in this world. 1700s, right in my element here. Love history, love epic films, period pieces, of course. But this one, is really, as I say, a cut above everything that I've seen in this vein. And it truly is the film, that I hold in the highest regard as a standalone film. It's Barry Lyndon, and I really want to carry on talking about this film. But yes, no doubt there'll be some analysis scenes, videos here. on this channel at some point in the future. Definitely, I really look forward to the comments on this one. I would really, really recommend, of course, people to give their rankings and just their thoughts on all the things that happen in the film. It'd be so great if you could do that. And yes, just overall, consensus on the film, thoughts on the film, and yes, I thought, just go all out in this review and do a massive, massive film review here on a massive film. The epic, really. As a standalone film, and yes, the greatest Kubrick. The one that moves me the most, that enthralls me the most. To call it boring has me scratching my cranium. It really does. It's just constantly an enthralling experience. It's Barry Lyndon. I'm in Barry Lyndon, as an experience the film, and I never leave. Even when I stop, the film, and the wonderful credits come on, even the credits, so perfectly timed, and just because it lives within me. It's a part of me, Barry Lyndon, and yes, because cinema is literally life to me. This is the thing I am immersed in more than anything. I care about more. The reason really actually I am here, is cinema, and this is the film really standing alone that above everything is the one that represents my love, my passion for life, and it's Barry Lyndon. Who would have thought, this film that just a coffee table film at times, whatever that means, kind of thing. But yeah, the one that really originally did not get too much attention. It's Barry Lyndon, and it's a magnum opus, the greatest Kubrick film from the greatest director of the 70s. Within that work from the 70s, better than Spielberg for me, better than Malick, better than Coppola. It's Stanley Kubrick, and it's his finest film, the finest standalone film of all time in the history of cinema, the greatest of the 20th century. And yes, thank you so much, especially if you've watched this till the end, all the way through. Thank you, and well done. And thank you everyone for watching this review.